Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, joined here on set by trial attorney Bernarda Villalona, and also joining with us via Skype is Judge Ashley Wilcott. I have such great guests because we are live, or we are going to be live today, in two major trials. We're already live in one. Lot to break down. Let's get started. Okay, as they go through all this technical stuff, we're going to jump out, give us an opportunity to talk about the really big parts of this case. Bernarda, I want to start with you. Opening statements yesterday. Pretty incredible to watch both sides tell their story. Got to say, strong opening statements from the state and the defense. Don't always see it. I always wonder if one side's weaker, but I don't know. Two strong sides. What did you think about it?
Yes, I think that actually both sides were very strong in their opening statements. But one thing that stood out to me from the prosecution is that they chose to discuss and to bring out Drejka's statement that he gave. Personally, as a prosecutor, I wouldn't have brought out the statement because obviously the defense wouldn't have been able to speak about the statement unless the prosecution would have brought it out first. So that gave the defense an opportunity to give some explanations about some inconsistencies or some things in Drejka's statements that didn't make any sense. But all in all, I think the prosecution gave a great opening statement. The defendant's statement, I don't think that they really addressed it in a good manner, so it wasn't worth bringing out. The defense statement, opening statement, was extraordinary. I loved it. The only comment I would have in regards to the defense's opening statement is that they were a little bit hiding from the jury that they never played out the entire video. So if you notice from the defense's opening statement, they never showed, every time that they showed the statement, the video, they never showed the victim backing up. If you take that into account, they played at various times, and at no times did they show to the jury when the victim was backing up before Drejka fired the deadly shot.
That's an interesting perspective. I'm curious, we also have with us a juvenile judge and trial attorney, Judge Ashley Wilcott. Judge Ashley, what did you make of that? I mean, did you get the sense that they were flavoring this video in a way? Because what they did say is, we don't want to play it in slow motion. We want to play this in real time. We want you to see how fast this occurred in that 3 to 4 seconds. And, you know, one perspective could be, yeah, maybe they're trying to hide it, but maybe they are trying not to. I'm curious your perspective on it.
Yeah, so I definitely agree the video is going to be the crux of the case in this case. And I do think that they weren't trying to hide it necessarily, but I think the prosecution and defense throughout their case are going to focus on different aspects of the video. And that's when they're really going to focus on the details, because I agree, the victim did step back. We all know that. And that's a significant piece if you're arguing it was not stand your ground. But I think the defense needs to harp on avoiding harping on that piece.
Well, you know, this is day 2. We're going to see where this goes. So far, strong day from the prosecution. And yesterday was very big, trying to talk about another incident that the defendant got himself in that was happened before this incident with Marquise McLaughlin. So eerily similar, could have simply ended up in violence the same way this did. But, you know, it didn't, and luckily it didn't, but it did give you a good insight into what was going on with the defendant. Was he just looking to pick fights with people that picked wrong parking spots? Apparently he was very sensitive to people who were parking in handicapped parking spots, mostly because of a family issue. We'll break that down in a second. All right, so let's just get some more perspective. Bernarda, I want to mention the thing that I talked about yesterday. It was interesting to hear this other altercation that was brought into evidence. You know, sometimes we don't get to see prior bad acts or prior things that happen, and we don't want to cloud the jury's judgment, but here it was important. What did you make of that line of testimony? Because we saw several witnesses talk about that incident.
I like that, first off, it was a huge win for the prosecution to have been able to bring in a prior bad act. I liked it because it puts into perspective the character of Drejka. This incident with him on this date wasn't something that was isolated. Obviously, he has a past, and a past that was so specific where he said, I could have shot you. In February, he tells this man, I could have shot you.
Not the victim, of course. We're talking about a separate person, yes.
But yes, he said that he could have shot him. And at that time, he didn't have a gun. Right. So I think it puts into perspective also that he wasn't scared in February. And the same way how he wasn't scared in February, he wasn't scared on this date when he encountered Marquise. This is just his personality, and this is his demeanor. You
know, Judge Ashley, a big part of this legal analysis is who is the aggressor in the self-defense cases. So I'm going to ask you, is it Drejka? Because if he's armed and he feels emboldened, looking to see who's parking in the right parking space or not. I don't mean to make light of it, but again, that's kind of what happened here. Is he the aggressor or is he not? Because he didn't take out the weapon and start brandishing it, but he gets pushed out of nowhere and thrown to the ground. So the question is, who's the aggressor in the McLaughlin incident? Is it the victim or the defendant, in your opinion?
Well, I think in this case, the argument is it's clearly the defendant, because you see him walk out and push the victim to, the victim pushes the defendant to the ground. And then after that, in self-defense, the defendant becomes the aggressor. So there's a first and there's a second. And the question for the jury becomes, okay, but was the defendant acting in self-defense because he perceived it to be a very real threat and was justified using deadly force, or rather, was it that it did not warrant his pulling out a gun and shooting him, even though the victim arguably was the aggressor who started this altercation, Jesse?
I gotta say, this is one of those cases, in self-defense cases, you can go either way. I'm not sure at this point. I mean, it's really complicated, and we have to look at the time frame. We have to look at the motivations. I could see when the prosecution started their opening statement, I said, oh, slam dunk case. Then the defense came, and I said, wait, not so much. We're only in day 2. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be live and we'll break down more of it.